I want to talk today a little bit about why I think emotions are important to be understood and how understanding our emotions, or even a lack of understanding emotions, can have impacts on our quality of life. And so I'd like to set the stage with sharing a story. For the longest time in arguments, my catchphrase was, "What are you talking about?" And said with such conviction and disbelief on what was being said or done in front of me that the other person truly was crazy and I was the rational one. Past tense, said with conviction. I'll give you an example. With different partners in my life, common disputes would erupt in similar ways. And so I'll just try and have an amalgam of a story that kind of draws this out. So imagine a partner and I one night decide that the following day, to start our weekend, on Saturday morning, we're going to prepare a nice big pancake breakfast. And, well, let me precise that. We decided we were going to start our weekend with a nice big pancake breakfast, and I was going to cook it. And not a big deal. I'm usually the one that cooks in relationships, and I enjoy it. It's something that I like. But I have a different rhythm than most people, and so I usually wake up earlier, and in most cases, that's not the case for partners. And so here I am, Saturday morning, I wake up early, and I go and start my day. I relax a bit. I watch TV. I do a little bit of work. And while I'm waiting, I didn't eat anything. I'm just waiting for the person to wake up because, well, we agreed on having a big breakfast. So I'm not gonna eat something, and I'm waiting. All right, that happens. No big deal. I'm occupying my time. Finally, the person wakes up, and they go to get ready for the day and take their shower. And I say to myself, I'm going to make this meal, and I'm going to have the coffee ready. I'm going to have the bacon ready. I'm going to have some fruit cut up. I'm going to have the pancakes ready so that when the shower ends and they come out, ta-da, ideal man, person who makes the day great. Huge expectation. So again, didn't eat. I'm hungry making this food. Get everything set up, and I'm ready for the person to come out, and I'm sitting there in the living room. Food's all ready, looking good, and they're not coming out. 5 minutes goes by, and the food's getting colder. 10 minutes go by, and the food's getting colder, and I'm getting more and more annoyed. 15 minutes goes by, food's ice cold. I'm really upset by this because what I had planned isn't coming to fruition. What I had planned, what I expected isn't happening. And I still want to have that, you did a good thing moment. And so I'm still trying to wait. And then it's like coming up on 20 minutes, and I have to go see what's going on. And so I knock on the door, it opens, and it's at that moment I see that this person decided to do a deep clean of the bathroom, and I say, "What are you doing?" And the response was something along the lines of, "I'm doing the clean. You'd never help out around here, and the kitchen's a mess." Whew. Cue explosion, right? And catchphrase, "What are you talking about?" And I list off in the most defensive way my resume of chores that I do, all of the things that I do right. And it's met with, "Well, I guess I'm just the bad guy. I'm a horrible person. It's all my fault." Martyrdom. And here I go from wanting to have a really nice morning and start the weekend nice. And she did too. And we end up with me yelling in her face, "You're not a bad person, but neither am I." That's how it ended. And what ensued was about 3 days of bitter, toxic silence. And I can tell you that in that moment, I thought this fight happened to me. That I was the one who was the victim. That I was the good guy doing something right. And this person And thank God, thanks to the tools that I've learned since, I can look back at this with more clarity, more maturity, and see what really happened, right? Because let's be honest, the other person wasn't the only participant in what happened. I was also there. I'm also responsible for the mornings I have. I'm also responsible for the way things turn out. Because let's be honest, if in that moment the person felt like they weren't getting enough help around the house, that wasn't the time to tell them yes, they were. That was the time to listen. But why couldn't I? Why was anger what came out? Why was defensiveness what came out? Because that's the trick. If you want to have a mastery over your emotional fluency, you want to have some granularity in the things that you're feeling, understanding your emotions and how they come about is really important. So let's start with how I set the stage. I woke up early. I was hungry. Why didn't I eat something? Because hunger is a real thing. Why? Because you're on edge. You physically don't feel well. And you have no resources to manage what's happening around you because you deprived yourself of them. So, first mistake, don't eat anything and don't take care of myself physiologically. So biology plays a huge role, which means that even if I wasn't feeling it particularly in that moment, there were effects that were happening, right? Like as I was waiting, even though I can say no problem, maybe there was a problem while I was waiting for this person to wake up that because I didn't eat anything, I wasn't happy with it. And it's not the other person's fault. Those are my feelings. And I have to accept them and I have to process them and do something with them. But if you have no resources, no energy, what are you processing? Nothing. So the second thing then, I had an expectation. I had several expectations. My expectation one was that I was going to try and time the breakfast and do it all myself. Why? Second expectation, that I was going to create this wonderful moment and going to be appreciated for it. Second expectation gone wrong. Next expectation, that the other person wasn't going to have any other experiences other than what we said. That she wasn't going to wake up and see something that I didn't see, that she wasn't going to be bothered by something else, and that her own mood and biology and physiology wasn't going to play a role. Just expected it. And so when the person woke up, instead of talking, instead of communicating and having a touch base and see if the plan is still the same, I just assumed that what we said was still true, that nothing else had changed, and that my expectations were going to be met. Why? Because that's what I wanted. My expectations aren't anybody else's responsibility. They're my own. And by not communicating that with someone, I literally set everything up mentally, emotionally, and physiologically to be a disaster. How couldn't I explode in that moment? I did nothing to take care of me. I did nothing to take care of my emotional state. I took nothing to take care of anything in that moment. I'm responsible for how that turned out. Am I responsible for how the other person acted? No, but I'm responsible for not being able to respond in an authentic way. And I say that this happened with multiple partners in the past because it was repetitive. It was a loop. It was the story that I knew. And so that's the next part that plays a big role in our emotions, is that we already have this idea of what things mean. When she said, this house is a mess and you're not helping out enough, I wasn't hearing that in that moment, the person who cares for me needs help. I heard, I'm the problem and I'm what needs to be solved. That's not true. And while that person was overwhelmed because they didn't have resources either, if I had my resources, I could have responded in a more authentic way. I don't want to be this person's enemy. I'm not looking for that. And I know this person is in a couple with me. They're not looking to do that either. But because neither of us had resources, we couldn't do any better. Nobody's at fault here, per se, but we are responsible. So I'm not looking to blame myself for things, but I am looking to acknowledge where I have room for responsibility, where I have more room to act. And so I think that's the most important thing when it comes to understanding our emotions, is being more in contact with what really was happening. So if I go back through this, when she woke up later than I had expected, I could have communicated something that I was feeling if I was better in touch with what was going on in my body, right? When I was sitting there and waiting for her to come out of the bathroom to start the day, 5, 10, 15 minutes, why did I wait so long? And why didn't I respond to what was going on in my body? Because in those moments, I can tell you, there's agitation that was happening. There was something that could have been communicated much sooner. And why didn't I ask how she was doing? Why wasn't I able to check in with her and say, hey, did you have a good night? You still want to do what we want to do this today? Or, I could have checked in, but because I had no resources and I was stuck in my own story, it prevented me from actually being present. And so when I finally did talk, and the first thing that I received was something that I didn't like, what happened inside me wasn't anger. And I think if we all take inventory, we all pay attention to what happens inside of us, you'd agree that it's not anger in you either. It's something different. You get pain somewhere inside your chest or in your stomach. You feel tension somewhere. And so tension and heaviness and that pain, it might be more useful for us to acknowledge that we were hurt. And being hurt doesn't necessarily mean being angry if we know how to process and we know how to express being hurt. And it's not anybody's fault. We're not saying you hurt me. We can acknowledge the fact that, wow, this isn't what I was expecting, and I'm feeling very hurt by this. And I know that that's not the normal way or typical way that people talk to one another, but it should be, right? And I don't like using the word should, but it could be. We could be open. We could talk. We could invite some safety into our environments, into our relationships, into our family, to say, hey, I'm hurt right now. And I think you might be hurt too. With what I know now, had I taken a little bit more care and more attention to my own state, I'd be able to say those things. And I will tell you now, through the transformation that I've gone through and the work and the practice, it turns out a lot differently when I'm able to say, I'm hurt. It's not your fault. What can we do to fix this? Because being hurt means that your body wants to move towards healing. Your body wants to move towards making it feel better. So in those moments when you feel those things in your body and the mind tells you a story and you jump onto it and you choose one emotion, if what you're feeling doesn't subside, it doesn't loosen up, it doesn't lighten, then your story, your actions that you put into place are actually reinforcing those feelings. It's actually pushing you further away from where you want to go. And so you lose flexibility in your experiences. You lose the ability to respond in different ways. And you lose authenticity. You lose your ability to be the person you wanted to be in that moment. You lose the opportunity to have the moment you wanted to have. And you lose the opportunity to connect with the people you want to connect to because you're stuck somewhere else. You're not present. I wasn't present. And so when we want to understand why it's important to understand our emotions, different things come up. One, like I said, resources, physiology, what you're feeling, not how you're feeling. The second thing is being aware of what's going on in your mind. What's the story? What's the background? What's the context? And what meanings are you attaching to what's happening? Because what you're feeling isn't the same thing as the story you're telling yourself. What's happening isn't how much it matters to you. And if we can tease out those distinctions, then we can have access to a more authentic, more genuine experience, something that matters more to you than what you're telling yourself. The other thing that's important to know is the words we use, right? There's a huge difference between concern and worry. There's a huge difference between worry and fear. I know that in ways that people speak, in ways that I speak, if I start using vague terms, right? Like if I start a new job, there's a difference between being concerned about what that first day is going to be like and being scared about what your first day is going to be like. But we don't really make that distinction. And so word choice is extremely important. Why? Because it exudes and demands different types of energy out of you. And so if you're depleting your resources, if you're pulling too much energy out of what you're saying, and you're also presenting that energy and externalizing it out into the world, it's going to draw the same type of energy back. There's a huge difference between being annoyed by something and being mad about something. Annoyed is, oh, that kind of sucks. Being mad about something draws more energy, more investment, more action, and invites different types of responses from the people around you. And so the more we behave in those ways with limited language, with imprecise meanings, imprecise labels, the less in contact we are with what's really going on. Because a teacher said to me once, and I really admire this, that anger, sadness, the emotions that we use, it's just what your mind guesses at is happening in your body. Because it can't speak the language of the body. And the body can't speak the language of the mind. And so the more that we're able to pay attention to those things, and the more that we're able to tease out the differences, the more we're able to have more raw and more authentic experiences, instead of trying to use a label of an emotion to impede what's going on in the body and explain it away. The more we can connect to what's actually happening, process what's going on in the environment, and then put a more apt label on what's occurring. And the more that we do that, the more we fine tune our emotional experiences, the more granularity we have in what happens around us, and the more ability we have to respond in ways that we would like to. And so if you're interested in learning more about this, learning more about how our emotions can impact the quality of life, like and subscribe. If you want to participate in the communication, in the conversation, and share your experiences about what emotions mean to you and how you live them, and possibly participate in building something together that we can all learn from one another, join the school community. We look forward to hearing about what your experiences are with this. I look forward to hearing about what your thoughts are. So please like, subscribe, comment, join the community, and I look forward to getting to know all of you better.